If you're trying to write a formula that refers to dynamic data that keeps getting added to or subtracted from, there could be times when you're trying to say, I want to get the last entry out of a column or a group of cells. In this worksheet here called offset, we got some reporting date information in column A and a closing rate, perhaps a stock market rate in column B. And we want to have in cell D2 the last reporting date. The list is going to grow in column A, maybe quite large eventually, also in column B. We always want to see the last reporting date. And so looking at the data right now, in D2, we would like to see 5/15/2013, and over in E2, we want to see 256. We're going to be using a function called offset. If you haven't heard about it, and you might not have encountered the need to use it, you will find it under lookup and reference functions. And as we slide over the description here, offset returns a reference to a range that is a given number of rows and columns from a given reference. Perhaps a longer explanation might be better there, but at least it captures the essence of what it is we're trying to do. We've got a dynamic situation here. Before using offset, I want to introduce another function that you might have encountered, and it's going to be helpful as we use offset. We need to know how much information is in column A. And right now you can see that 9 cells have data. And the function called countA simply counts non-blank cells. And it doesn't have anything to do with column A necessarily. It does in this case. But countA means count entries. And so the answer here will be, as we look at the data there, 9. That's going to help us as we use the offset function. Equal offset. We begin with a starting location. That's what the term reference means here. Our starting location is cell A1, comma. Now, how many cells downward do we want to move? We want to go grab the data out of A9. That happens to be 8 cells downward. Now, earlier we saw how countA gave us the value 9. Let's put in our countA right now for column A, minus 1. So that's going to be 8. We want to move 8 cells downward, comma. Do we want to move any columns leftward or rightward? No, we don't. We put in 0. The other 2 arguments here are optional. We don't need them now. So we'll put in our right parentheses. And if this is working smoothly, we should get the answer 5/15/2013. And there it is. And if I put in a new date here, either by dragging or typing, it should change. And it has. Now, we want to do a similar thing in column E, but we want to do it for the column B entries. And we can just copy this rightward. Now, the format will need to be changed. At first, it will look a little bit strange. But as we look at the function here, the offset as it's been counted, now we're looking in column B. And that's just fine, although we could use column A here as well. It doesn't make any difference. But what we want to do here is just change the format. And a quick format change off the Home tab would work just fine here. The comma button. And we're expecting to see right now 256 because we haven't put in a new closing rate yet. Maybe the closing rate for May 16th here is 259. We put that in place, and that's what we see right here. Now, if you're familiar with how to use array formulas, we can use these in combination with offset to come up with an average of the last 3 days. If we highlight those 3 cells, we'll see that in the status bar at the bottom of the screen, 256.27. How can we come up with an average here using average and offset? Equal average, left parenthesis, we'll use offset. And now what we're about to do is use B1 as our starting reference point, comma, and like before, we'll use a countA, this time on column B, minus 3. In other words, we don't want to go all the way to the bottom. We want to go all the bottom, but up 3 cells, comma. We don't want to move any columns rightward. That's the 0. And now we will be putting in a value for the height, and that's going to be 3 cells because we want to do an average of the last 3 cells. Right parenthesis, and since this is an array formula, in other words, it won't work unless we make it an array formula, we need to press Control-Shift-Enter. And there's our answer, 256.27. I'll highlight the last 3 cells again in the closing rates here, and you see the average at the bottom, 256.27. To do this for 5 days, a simple switch here. I'll simply take this data right here, highlight it, Control-C, and escape. Let's just plug it in over here and make a couple of quick changes. Control-V, and we'll change both of those 3s to be a 5. Control-Shift-Enter, and there's our average for the last 5 days, 251.06. Once again, we can verify it by highlighting those 5 cells. We see at the bottom of the screen that the average is 251.06. Now, eventually what you might want to do is just have a different number here and have a formula work off whatever number is here. So I'll put in a 6 here, and what might that be? Once again, I'll simply paste what I had copied before and then make some changes. So I had this kind of an entry. This time, instead of -3 here, we want to actually refer to the data in H1 right there. And we want this 3 also to refer to H1. So now we'll be getting an average, as I press Control-Shift-Enter, an average of the last 6, 250.33. So I can go highlight those last 6 cells to verify that. Looks like we're on the right track. Same answer there. And so we could change that to a 4 or a 2 or whatever we want. So you can imagine different ways of using this. So I've seen a number of different examples of how the offset function allows us to pull data from different locations. And even when that location is going to be changing, as we've seen in these examples, we can take advantage of this technique, possibly using array formulas as we did in columns F, G, and H, or in the earlier simple examples in column D and E, a direct use of the offset function.